Hi YouTube, this is Joe Calton with Calton Cutlery. You can find me on the web, caltoncutlery.com. Okay, so today we're gonna continue on our build for these new, I can't remember what I call them. Anyway, they're a belt knife version of the Carter pattern neckers that I make a whole bunch of. Okay, so I think where we ended up last time was, well, we must have drilled the holes. We have our lines scribed out, for our pattern to get our profile done. And then we have it cut out and our holes drilled, and the holes are chamfered. So the next thing that's going to need to be done is to go ahead and grind the profile of this knife, to the lines with an old 36 grit belt. I think the ones that I use are, actually we'll just go in there and see what it says. We'll grab some safety glasses and grab some earplugs, and we'll go into the grinding room. Okay, we got to navigate through the Labradors. All right. Okay, so we're going to do this on the old one horse, kind of my standard, my roughing grinder here. And these belts are Blaze, Norton Blaze. These are, I think it says R980P on there. Anyway, these are 36 grit belts. I get them from Pop's Knife Supply. Let's see if I can see where you're at here. Pop's Knife Supply, and they grind really good. Most of the stuff, and we'll get to this later, but most of the stuff I grind after heat treat. And these work really good. They cut really well with very little pressure. They cut nice and cool. And then once they're done with grinding bevels, then they get regulated to grinding profiles. And this one, it's pretty worn still. There's hardly anything left of it. I probably ought to go ahead and save the next one that I dull up grinding bevels and save it for profiles, because this one's about done, but it'll still cut pretty dang good. Alright, so let me get, okay, I think you're about as close as you're going to get there. And this is the exact same procedure that we did with the grinding the profile of the pattern, except for with the pattern, I was still kind of deciding where the lines were going to be, so it was an awful lot of look and check to see how I like it and everything. This one, the pattern's already done, so pretty much we're just grinding up to the line with the 36 grit belt. Alright, let me get my other earplug in and my safety glasses on. Turn the fan on. There they go. Okay, let's grind this. Okay, a couple of things that came to mind while I was grinding that. Now I've only got half of it ground, okay? But first of all, you don't really have to worry about the amount of heat generated in this blank prior to heat treat, okay? Because we're gonna cycle this, and then we're gonna heat it up and quench it and then temper it, okay? So so you don't have to worry about the amount of heat that goes into the grinding it right now, okay? I mean, you can turn bits and pieces of this red hot and it ain't gonna hurt nothing, okay? The second thing is, look at this burr right here. Well, let's see. If I get it turned right, you'll probably end up seeing, oh hey, look at that. It must be kind of cool in here. I can see my breath. You should be able to see a burr on the back side right where my thumb is, okay? And what that is as this belt is grinding steel off, okay, any machining operation, you always end up with a burr, okay? So as this belt is coming this way, it's pulling steel, and where it comes off the end here, there's a burr there, all right? Now that burr, I suppose, can cut you if you've got kind of soft hands, or if it's, you know, just, you know, like a paper cut, you know, it's got to hit just right, you know, and I guess it could slice you. The other thing is when it pertains to grinding, is that burr will sometimes, you see that little hitch right there as it comes off that table? That burr is grabbing the table, okay? So if you've got your table set really, really close to your belt, or if as you're coming across you feel some grabs, it's not coming smooth, it's that burr grabbing the inside of your belt, okay? Not that that can, I mean it's enough of a difference to make a difference sometimes when you're grinding. So I just figured I'd go ahead and throw that out there. But you can see how well this belt is grinding even though it's old and wore out. Another thing is sometimes to get like inside these curves and everything, like if you don't have a small wheel attachment or a small wheel grinder, you know, run your belt up off the platen a little bit. So instead of it running, you know, true with the platen, you know, run it off to the side some. And then what will happen is, even with these weight belts, is that, I mean, because that belt doesn't have any give, but when you run it off the platen, you will be able to get up into those curves a little bit easier. Another thing is, I don't like to stay in one spot for very long. I like to kind of keep moving and kind of blend into the prior grind. I guess that's kind of tough to explain, but that's the best I've got right now. So anyhow, we're going to go ahead and put the earplug back in and finish grinding this knife out. Okay, that looks pretty dang close with the 36 grit belt. So now let's go ahead and swap it out and go for the deciding where to put my earplug so it won't get too dirty. that's good with a 36 grit belt. Now let's go ahead and swap to the worn 220 grit belt. Clean everything else up except for these little finger choils in here, and then we'll be ready to put it on the small wheel grinder to get that. Now again, this here is a Hermes 406 Hermes 406 J Flex, and it's in 220 grit, and these belts work pretty dang good. Mostly I use them for grinding handle material, but then once they get worn from handle material, then they go to kind of general purpose belts. I don't really grind a whole lot of blades with this belt. I like those the Gator belts for grinding blades, but these work really good for handles. Handles, I also use them, since I have them and they're worn out all the time. Handles, I'll use them to finish up the edges on Kydex sheaths, leather sheaths, pretty much whatever you need a half dull 220 grit belt for. Okay, so this time we're going to go ahead and get the, first we're going to grind everything that we can get to this way, okay, and that'll get rid of all our 36 grit scratches. Then we're going to come in, and the parts that we can get to and make them go this way, we will. So the spine, the back of the handle, the edge, and a little bit up in here. Okay, so now we've got everything going this way as much as we can, except for up inside these finger choils, right? Now we still have a little bit of a 220 grit burr, on the corners. So let's go ahead, I think the last video when we did the drilling, I told you usually I wait until everything is profiled and then knock them burrs off before you drill the handle holes. And that just lets with that burr, if you have a burr on this side and you don't have a burr on that side, it can kind of sit on the table like that. With this right here, with the amount of clearance that we have for the pinholes and everything, and after you chamfer them, see how much actual hole is in there that's 0.127, I believe, diameter. By the time you've got just that little bit amount of hole, there's still going to be some wiggle room for the pins, and it'll be okay. But anyhow, let's go ahead and deburr this, the parts here that we can get to. Now this is just a very light deburr, okay? what happens is okay, so you grind to the lines, right? Or maybe even grind until the line is gone, whatever your, whichever way you like to do it. Well, once you get your handle material on, and once you come out of heat treat, once you grind the blade, you're going to end up taking a 1/16 inch off of this edge just to get rid of any decarbed edge. Okay, so you can leave a little bit extra, the thickness of that line, or a little bit more. And then once you get your grinding done and your finish work done, you put a handle on. Well, you're going to have to grind that handle flush with the steel, or at least that's the way I do it. So, just because you grind up to the lines, it's not set in stone that's what that's going to be, because you've still got, more machining operations to do around the outside of the profile. So bear in mind, when you go to take this burr off, if you do more than just a light pass to take the burr off here, and you actually create a bevel, then when you go to put your handle material on, you're going to have to grind this part right here all the way back to the edge of that bevel. Otherwise, it'll look like there's a gap in the handle material and the blade. But anyways, let's go ahead and knock that burr off, and then we'll go get this part done. Okay, so see how light that was? Also, if there's little bitty bits of burr that's in there, when we go to heat cycle this, we're gonna take it all the way up to critical several times. Okay, every time you take it to critical, you're gonna form scale. Now that scale is gonna take the outside layer of this blade down some. Okay, and any bits of metal that aren't the main body of the blade, so like these burrs right here, they'll get heated up a little bit. They won't get heated up any more than the body of the blade, because we're putting it into a kiln that's at the same temperature, right? But since they are thinner, they'll take that heat more intensely than the rest of the body of the blade, because you don't have the backup here. So a lot of times, if you have burrs like this, when you go into your heat cycles, when you come out of the heat cycles, they'll have cooked off, for lack of a better description. So anyway, let's go ahead and go get the finger choils smoothed out. All right, here's this machine, and we're going to need to plug it in. There we go. Okay, so we are running a 120 made in Germany. So it's probably a Klingspor belt, and I get these from Pops also. And the 120, it'll be fine because it's kind of worn a little bit, so it'll act more like a 200 or so. I think that's about as close as I'm going to be able to get you. Now this machine's kind of loud, so watch turn your volume down or something. Okay, so we've got that part ground down to the lines. Now what we're going to do is going to go ahead and take off that little bit of burr there. Okay, that feels pretty good. So now we can come over here and get rid of the earplugs so that I don't feel like I'm yelling at you. Alright, so now we got to talk a little bit about steel, and I guess I can look at you while we're talking about this. So now we're going to talk a little bit about steel and the way it comes from the suppliers. Okay, so you order the steel, and most of the time you get it annealed. Okay, well, you receive it from your supplier, and it's in the annealed state. Okay, so it is as soft as it's going to be, which is good because now you can drill holes. It's easy to grind it, you know, all that kind of stuff, right? Okay, but the one bad thing about it is that since it's so soft, you hardly ever get it straight. Okay, so when you receive the steel, sometimes you get lucky and it's straight. Most of the times, I guess it's not really luck, it's just a fact of life, that the majority of the times it's not going to be straight. Okay, now, you know, when you're working with like pocket knives or something where, you know, you've got moving parts and everything needs to be, you know, straight and flat and true for it to be able to work together, right? With a fixed blade knife, there's a little bit more latitude because it doesn't move. You know, this blade doesn't fold into this handle, right? Okay, so the level of straightness doesn't really need to be like it is on a folding knife. Okay, I mean for the knife to work right? So, you know, I do, all my fixed blades are just by eye, you know, I mean, honestly, I eyeball it to see how straight that they are. I suppose what you could do, I mean, if it really bothered you, is to grab, I mean, I guess you could, like, go all the way to, you know, spend a whole bunch of money on a, you know, a granite surface plate and all that kind of stuff, and use yourself, you know, an edge, a height gauge, you know, to scribe center lines on your edges and all that kind of stuff. You know, I build working knives, and for working knives, you don't really, I just think that level of precision really it's not required. So you could put this blade on a granite surface plate, or in this case, just a granite tile, and see how straight it is. Now this one right here, on this side, see there? I got a little bit of wiggle. It's wiggling back and forth some. You might not be able to see that, but let's get you down where you can. See that wiggle? Now let's turn it on, but so there's wiggle side to side, but there's no wiggle front and back. Now this can also be caused by those little bitty burrs that we have. We've still got a couple of spots where we have a little bit of a burr. But this one, this size, or side, or yeah, side of the blade. Okay, we don't have the side to side wiggle, but if I push on the butt of the blade, see the point of the blade come up. Okay, so that lets you know that the blade is like this and like this a little bit. This part right here is more than likely just a, you know, a couple of burrs that we missed in there somewhere. This way right here, with that amount of movement, it's definitely going like this. Okay, so the way I straighten those is on the anvil with a hammer. All right, let's go ahead and get that done. And then this blade will be ready for heat cycles, which means that I've got a whole bunch of other blades to catch up before we do the heat cycle video. So I clean off my anvil, you know, just wipe it off. Now my anvil has got a very slight low spot right up in here, okay? So what I do is, now also with, I told you that grinding, your final finish on the profile is going to be with the grind, the scratches going this way, right? Well, that really helps to look and see, how straight the thing is. All right. So let's see. When I look here, I can see that our point is this way. So either our point needs to go that way or the belly needs to go, either the point needs to go this way or this portion in here needs to come this way. All right, so let's see. I'm going to hold it up here away from you. And actually, no, here, let's go with this way. This is part of the new shop. Usually you look at a light, but that white wall right there might be kind of handy for this. Okay, let's see. All right, so the lens is over here. There, I think you can kind of see that. See how not straight it is, all right? So when I look away from the camera, I can see most of our bend is right up in here, okay? Now, granted, this steel is very, very soft, right? Because it's been annealed. So this won't take very much. So we're going to go with the, your forging hammer. One side's going to be crowned, and the other side's going to be this side's going to be crowned. This side's going to be mostly flat. So we're going to use the side that's mostly flat, and we're just going to give it just a couple of love taps, really. Now that right there, that's all it took. Murray Carter does an awful lot of this in his book, and that's where I learned. He uses I think he's got a brass hammer. I've got a copper one, and he uses a stump a lot, which I do use a stump quite a bit, but my favorite to finish up is the anvil. And I actually have a new stump here in the new shop. And you can see, heck, it doesn't have hardly any, dish or anything like that. But on a stump, what you can do is, since wood compresses pretty easily and steel doesn't, you can sit here and now you have a little depression inside that wood. And you can use that depression, kind of like a 3-point in a vise to straighten blades out or take little kinks out, stuff like that. Anyway, so we talked about steel as it comes from the factory. More than likely it's not straight. And then it's in the annealed position. We've got our holes drilled. We've got our profile cut. We've got our profile ground with a 36, ground it with a 220, except for up in here we got a 120 finish, and we got a couple of scratches left right up in there. So I'll have to take those out before we go to heat treat. Stress risers, okay, so stress risers, any really big scratches or nicks or anything with sharp edges that is going to be on the surface of the knife that's going to be going into the quench oil, those are called stress risers, okay, and they can cause cracks in the finished blade, okay. Not exactly sure how that happens. I just know that it happens. Some guys will heat treat at 60 grit. I would guess that 60 grit is probably a worn 60 grit belt, kind of like my worn 36 grit that we use for profiling. A lot of guys go clear up to 220. I typically do 220-ish, so 220 or a worn 120, somewhere around in there. Before I go especially into the quench. Now again, we're going to put this through 6 heat cycles between now and before the time that it hits the oil for the first time, okay? So the first 3 of those heat cycles are going to be at or slightly above critical, okay? Each one of those we're going to form scale. So that scale will kind of soften some of those coarser scratches, you know, by forming scale, and that scale will flake off. But still, you want to go into your heat cycles with as perfect of a blade as you can get. So anyway, so yeah, that's going pretty good. I think these are the other, oh, that's a pattern. These are the other 5 blades that have already been ground. I've got to do the finger toils and then drill the holes. I think I've got like 9, where'd they go? Oh, they're over there. 9 8-inch chefs that are going to go along with these. And then I've got a couple of pocket knives that the blades are going to go in with this batch of blades to get heat treated. And I think some boning knives, and I have to go through the order list and see if anything else can get slipped in there all at the same time. So it'll probably be at least a couple of days before we shoot the next video, and that is going to be on heat cycles and the beginning of heat treat. So hope y'all are enjoying this video, or this video series. You know, I'm thinking it's going to be an awful lot of fun, and honestly, that knife is starting to feel, I mean, that pattern is starting to feel really nice. I think I'm going to enjoy carrying that for a while. Yep, so I'm going to shut you down, and then I've got a really cool video here that I'm going to go ahead and set you up for next, and that is going to be freezing sharpening stones. I keep sharpening stones out in my truck, and I usually carry the Norton crystalline coarse fine. It's an oil stone, and oil, when it freezes, doesn't expand, as to my knowledge, like water does. So that's one of my big reasons that I carry an oil stone. Well, that, and honestly, I like oil stones better than water stones for general purpose stuff. But that's why I don't carry a water stone in the truck, is because I'm always kind of wondering, okay, well, if I use that and then I stick it in the truck, and then, you know, because they'll stay in the truck year round, and then it freezes hard that night, is that water going to get in there and pop these 2 stones apart? Is it going to, you know, because it's 1,000 grit on this one, this is a King 1/6. It's a lot more porous than the 6,000 grit side. Well, is that water going to get inside there and then freeze and then, you know, break this stone apart or cause spalling? I don't know. But one of the comments on the last unboxing of my sharpening stones video said he'd like to see me test it, and I thought, you know what, we better do that. So this afternoon we've got to soak one of these in oil and the other one in water, stick them in plastic bags, we'll stick them in the freezer overnight, and then tomorrow we'll pull them out and see what's left of them. So anyway, again, this is Joe Calton with Calton Cutlery. You can find me on the web, caltoncutlery.com. Hope you all enjoyed the video, and we will see you next time.